For Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad salawat.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Zuljana was the house of Imam Hussein. The original name of Zuljana was Murtajis, and he was purchased by Prophet Muhammad from an Arab named Haris. It is thought to have been the white stone. Just after the transaction of buying was over, Haris demanded the payment once again. The Holy Prophet said, "I've already paid you once, so why do you demand it again?" The Arabs argued and told the Holy Prophet to bring witnesses about this payment. But the Holy Prophet told him that there was nobody present at the time of payment except we two were present. So how can I bring you a witness? Suddenly a companion named Hazima came there. When he knew about the matter, he affirmed that Holy Prophet had done the payment and he was his witness. But the Holy Prophet told him that he was not present at the time of payment. So how do you confirm the matter? So he said, "O Prophet, we confirm everything you say, your prophethood, the descent of Gabriel, the divine decrees, and all other things. So it is impossible for us to imagine that you are lying. That is why I am confident that you have paid." The Holy Prophet was pleased with the faithfulness of Hazima and said, "O Hazima, from now onward one witness will be considered equal to two witnesses." From that time, Hazima was given the title of a man of double testimony. As this title was unique and all people of Hijaz talked about it, everybody knew the Zuljana is Prophet Muhammad's horse. When Imam Hussein was a mere child and learning to crawl, he used to go frequently to the stable of Zuljana and look at him. Once Prophet Muhammad saw his grandson was looking curiously at the horse as if some mysterious talk was taking place. So he asked Hussein if he wished to ride the horse. On being answered that he did, Prophet Muhammad ordered the horse saddled. When Imam Hussein approached the horse, however, the horse suddenly lowered itself to the ground to allow the boy to mount him. All those watching were pleased at the sight, except for one. Tears began to flow down Prophet Muhammad's cheek. When asked why, on what should a happy occasion he was weeping, Prophet Muhammad replied, "You are not aware of what I foresee. A day will come and when my grandson will not be able to keep himself in the saddle due to his extremely wounded scent of the desert of Karbala. With the same consideration, stooping on his forelegs and sitting on the ground as he has just done here." Zuljana features prominently in the traditional retelling of the story of the Battle of Karbala. It was Zuljana that returned without his rider from the battlefield, and in this way too told that Imam Hussein a.s. had been martyred. Zuljana also mentioned in many poems and mersiyas. Here is one. At the time of Hussein's last farewell, Sakina was busy talking to Zuljana. An important message she had to tell was, "I know about your unbounded love for my father." "Do you like me as well?" asked Hussein's little daughter. "If you do, Zuljana, then a request I have to make my father Hussein toward the battlefield do not take." "Zuljana, you know none from the battlefield does ever return. My heart from the grief of Ali Asghar yet does burn." cannot live without my Baba, O Zuljana. Ask Allah to give strength to this Sakina. Salawat.
May Allah keep our kids on the right path. For their success, give loud salawat. Now Sayyid Beg is going to recite also salawat for him.
On the night before Ashura, Imam Hasan alayhi salam was reading out the list of martyrs. He read out the names of all of them. One by one, all the names were read. When Qasim, the 13-year-old son of Imam Hasan alayhi salam, asked his uncle, "Oh, Uncle Hassan, is my name not on the list?" Imam said, "Qasim, how do you view death?" Qasim replied, "Oh, uncle, death is sweeter to me than honey." Qasim's mother was called Farwa. Qasim was 4 years old when his father, Imam Hasan alayhi salam, was poisoned. Qasim was brought up by Imam Hasan alayhi salam, who considered him as his own. Qasim was not yet a grown-up on the day of Ashura. He pleaded for permission to fight. Imam Hasan alayhi salam told him he was the remembrance of his brother and he did not wish to see his nephew killed before him. Qasim was disappointed and ran to his mother's tent. When Farwa found out why her son was so sad, she told him to take the letter that Imam Hasan alayhi salam gave to Qasim when he was in trouble. In the letter, Imam Hasan alayhi salam asked Qasim to represent his father on the day when Imam Hasan alayhi salam will be surrounded by an army of thousands. Qasim ran to Imam Hasan alayhi salam with the letter in his hand. Once Imam Hasan alayhi salam saw his brother's handwriting, he wept and he said that he had to obey the wishes of his brother. Qasim rode to the battlefield and with a loud voice introduced himself. Qasim killed several of Yazid's army soldiers. Then he saw Umar Saad, who was the commander of Yazid's army, giving water to his horses. He told Umar Saad, "You should be ashamed of yourself. The children of Hasan are crying of thirst." Qasim was attacked by one of the enemy soldiers. When Qasim fell, Hasan alayhi salam ran to his aid and attacked the enemy. Imam Hasan alayhi salam found Qasim severely injured and painfully scraped the earth with his feet. Imam said, "It is hard for your uncle that you call him, but he cannot answer. And if he answers, he cannot help you. And if he arrives to help you, he cannot save you. Anyway, with the people who killed you, this is a day which has many adversaries and few friends." After Qasim martyred, Imam Hussein alayhi salam lifted his nephew, holding him to his chest. Imam took Qasim's body back to the camp and laid his body near his son Ali Akbar. Salawat.
Excellent job for Sayyid Beg and his family who helped him prepare for the speech. Please say loud salawat. I ask Alibet, Noha Khan, Jamal Hassan Abdi to come and say Marsiya, salawat.
नारे तकबीर, नारे रिसालत, नारे हैदरी, बराए खुशनुदी इमाम ज़माना बुलंद तर सलावत।
एक बावल बुलंद नारे सलवात। गरीब ज़हरा पे क्या वक्त है गरीबी का, गरेबान चाक है बालों کے کرب و بلا تلاش کرتے ہیں رستہ نظر نہیں آتا یہ حال دیکھ کے ہنستے ہیں شاہ پہ اہل جفا بہن کے کانوں پر کل کائنات لاتے ہیں قدم قدم پہ یہ آواز دیتے جاتے ہیں ام لیلا سنبھال زینب کو لا رہا ہوں میں لاش اکبر ام لیلا سنبھال زینب کو لا رہا ہوں میں لاش اکبر ام لیلا سنبھال زینب کو بولے ہوں گے حسین یہ رو کر ام لیلا سنبھال زینب کو نوجوان لاش ہے ضعیفی ہے میری نظروں سے دیکھ منظر کو کیسے ہم شیر کو سنبھالوں گا میں سنبھالے ہوئے ہوں اکبر کو تیرا احسان ہوگا یہ مجھ پر ام لیلا سنبھال زینب کو اس کے سینے سے لے کے نام علی میں نے برچھی ابھی نکالی ہے امتحان دے چکی میری غربت اب تیری بے کسی کی باری ہے تو بھی اس وقت یا علی کہہ گئی ام لیلا سنبھال زینب کو دو نگینے تھے اس کی جھولی میں دونوں اکبر پہ کر دیے صدقہ اور صبر ایسا کہ اپنے بیٹوں پر میں نے روتے اسے نہیں دیکھا ہے مگر اب یہ لاش لیلا سنبھال زینب کو روک رکھا ہے اپنے عشقوں کو سب سے چھپ چھپ کے آہیں بھرتی ہے میں سمجھتا ہوں مادر اکبر تیری ممتا پہ جو گزرتی ہے رکھ کے اپنے کلیجے پر پتھر ام لیلا سنبھال زینب کو کیسے لاشیں جوان اٹھائے ہوں ایڑیاں خط بغاتی جا کیسے لاشیں جوان اٹھائے ہوں ایڑیاں خط بناتی جاتی ہیں ان نشانوں کو پیچھے پیچھے میرے اما زہرا مٹاتی جاتی ہیں اس کی نظریں نہ دیکھے یہ منظر ام لیلا سنبھال زینب کو نوجوان لاش ہے ضعیفی ہے میری نظروں سے دیکھ منظر کو کیسے ہم شیر کو سنبھالوں گا میں سنبھالے ہوئے ہوں اکبر کو تیرا احسان ہوگا یہ مجھ پر ام لیلا سنبھال زینب کو لا رہا ہوں میں لاش اکبر ام لیلا سنبھال زینب کو
Before I ask Maulana to come to the member, I would request Brother Sorabi, Mehdi Sorabi, our president, to give us update on the project for the new Unity Center for Muhammad wa ali Muhammad Salawat.
I will not take too much time. The reason I stood up is not to interrupt, inshallah, the next few night programs, the speech of Maulana, the Wasibats, the Matams. So I'm going to request, among many other requests I've made, for Maulana to put more burden on his shoulder. He can relate, inshallah, our stories of hopefully moving soon. That's definite, but hopefully sooner than later to our new place. So to summarize, we're close to our goal of, inshallah, having the amount of money that make the deal close. Maulana, I don't know, you must have heard that we have a security place. Inshallah, the shortage is another 135 given and taken, $150,000 And I know most of you, I'm not talking to new audience. I just want this message to echo, inshallah, with Maulana every night, relating that to the Muharram, the goals of Muharram, as we establish ourselves, inshallah, in this society. Inshallah, would be a center where it alleviates some of our issues of the facility that is lacking to have better majalises, inshallah. Majalises that will attract our new generation. So far, you see a few young individuals, alhamdulillah. If I don't want to mention again, we gave them certificate of appreciation. Even our youth have contributed $100, $200 they could. Anyone in this room who hasn't, please make sure you reach out. The reward is 100 times greater this month. Don't think it is Muharram, don't think it is wrong to talk about these things. Think of this center, inshallah, being a place where we can have 1,000 people next Muharram and Muharram in future. Whether we are here or not, whether our life is too short, the only thing we can do to do Salahatul Baghiyat that lives beyond us, inshallah. This is the goal. Please refer that, and I request Maulana, inshallah, before Matam to relate the stories and the sacrifices. We're only talking about money here. We're not talking about big sacrifices. And of course, the zulm and oppression still exists in this world. You can see it every day, especially in the Muslim world. With having better centers, having a scholar and alim that inshallah could be here throughout the year with us. Imagine this Maulana will stay out throughout the year. What effect it would have, inshallah. So I will not say anything more. Brother Arab, you can finish the program. Jazakallah khairan, inshallah. Reach to your pocket. We'll be posting that big flyer in the lobby. For the rest of Muharram, inshallah, pay attention and come and see Chacha, our treasurers, Brother Arab, myself, Brother Hajwali, and Brother Zayd Faizi, as you see when you have your donation in your hand, inshallah. Jazakallah.
I request all the mu'mineen to come up 2-3 flights so that other mu'mineen will come. I request Maulana Hasan Rizvi to come and say the 7th majlis tonight. For Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Second,
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين صلوات على محمد وعلى مؤمنين مؤمنات brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman Salamun alaykum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So continuing with the questions on Slido. You said you weren't really religious when you were younger. What made you realize you wanted to study and preach Islam? So obviously it's a long story. I can't give you the whole thing, but the shortened version is this. So I grew up in a typical Shia Desi household. My parents, may Allah bless both of them, they tried their best to raise me with the message and teachings of the Ahlul Bayt as far as they could understand and as far as they understood from their own parents. But obviously, as I think most of us recognize in this country, those of us who are parents, those of us who have emigrated from other countries here and who are trying to raise children in this society, the ways that we or you had been raised does not seem effective to raise kids over here. And as much as we think that that's the way it's going to work. As far as the research that myself I've looked into, and just looking at the way that communities have tried to reproduce that same educational style, that same tabligh style, it cannot work. It does not work. Psychologically, this society is different. Mentally, cognitively, educationally, culturally, all the factors are different. So yes, I'm not saying we do away with our culture, obviously. We have to protect our culture and we should save it. But there's a way that we can pass this down to the next generation. So when I was younger, there wasn't really things such as English lectures. So I had to typically sit in an Urdu lecture. And obviously this drove me away because typically the people that came, they sat down, and what did they mention? They would typically be the types that would scream, right? They didn't usually use the normal type of voice pattern. They would be screaming. So the first thing I would ask my dad is, why is this guy screaming? Like, what's he yelling at me for? Like, I didn't really understand. And my father didn't really have a way of explaining why this person yelled. It's just that that's the way that speakers have been doing since we came from Pakistan and India. Whenever I had questions about God, whenever I had questions about the Ahlul Bayt, why do we hit our chests? Why do we do matam? My father and my mother encouraged me to recite poetry and know him when I was younger, and alhamdulillah I did. But I never understood what I was saying, never understood why I was saying it, and this had an effect, a negative effect on me. So much so that after a while I just gave up everything. It didn't make any sense, so I left it. Now some people, they're willing to do certain things without knowing the reason, and that's fine, that's okay for certain individuals. But especially in this society here, most of us who have been born and raised here, we need to know the reasons. We need to know why. And especially coming from the school of Ahlul Bayt, where we can provide answers to everything, this should be the way that we should learn how to encourage our youth. And even for ourselves, we could and should try to find the reasons for our actions. So anyway, fast forward. In college, I learned to do my own research. All the questions I had about God's existence and justice and all this, I had to research myself. Alhamdulillah, with the help of Allah and religious people and certain family members, I was able to get the answers I needed. And when I started to push for more and more answers, I would be sitting down with certain scholars. And one of them told me, Hasan, you can ask me all of your questions, and I can try to give you all your answers, but you and I both know you're not going to accept what I have to say. Because, and he told me that, I know you're the type that needs to find the source for the answers. You need the deep reasons why. You need to understand it for yourself. And if I just give you the answer, it's not going to be enough for you. So you should go overseas, go to the Hawza, learn it for yourself, understand it for yourself, and then come back and then share those answers with people who are like you. People just like me who have been born and raised here, who have that same style of thinking, that same style of questioning, who have that same passion and desire to want the truth, but might need a certain way to understand that truth. And again, there's different ways of understanding the truth. No way is better than another way. And we should keep that in mind, right? As much as we want to impart our own version of Islam and the way that we learned Islam and others, we should keep in mind that not everybody learns the same, right? And if we keep that in mind, inshallah, then hopefully this will increase our love and connection with one another, because the thing that's keeping us together is the love of Ahlul Bayt. And if that is our goal, to increase that love, then nothing should be able to keep us apart. Salawat ala Muhammad. Can you give some examples of Islamic parenting? So to talk about Islamic parenting itself requires a whole lecture. Actually, we probably need a whole lecture series, right? Because there's books and books and books written on the topic. I'll just give you the famous hadith, which I'm sure you've all heard before, but I'll recite it for you and give you a little bit, probably just the first part, and explain it so you understand. So this one is famously narrated from all the Imams, but specifically we'll narrate it from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he says that he divides, I'll paraphrase the hadith, he divides parenting into 3 stages. He says the first stage is when the child is born, from when they're 0 up until 7. In this stage, the child is your master. They're your Sayyid. They're your Malik. They're the ones who command you and order you. In the second phase, when the child is between 7 to 14, now the roles reverse and you become the master. You become the Malik. You become the Sayyid and the one who gives orders. And then the final stage is from the ages of 14 to 21. And they say this is when your child becomes your wazir. They become your confidant. They become your friend. They become your advisor. So it seems like the first two levels, there's somebody on top and somebody on bottom, right? Somebody giving orders. And then the final stage is when now you should be like equals. And then the hadith ends by saying that after the age of 21, however your child is, you're basically done, right? You have to be hands off after that point. If they're good, then alhamdulillah, you've done a good job. If they haven't, let's say, accepted what you wanted them to accept as far as Islamic teachings, then you'll have to do your istighfar. Now it's between them and Allah, right? They're going to kind of have to find their own way. If you've done your duty properly and they still haven't accepted what you wanted to do, accepted the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, then Allah says, or the Prophet saying in this hadith, that you're ma'adhur, you're excused now. Because we know that obviously there are many family members of even the Prophets and the Ahlul Bayt. Obviously they would get the best parenting there, right? They'd be raised in the best way, who still rejected the teachings of Ahlul Bayt afterwards. We have many famous examples. One of the children of Nabi Nuh alayhi salam, right, who didn't board the ark. Many of the children of Nabi Yaqub alayhi salam, right, who threw Yusuf down a well. Many of the brothers or many of the cousins and family members of the imams who would go and basically spy on the imam for money and things like this. Wives of the prophets and the imams who would be treacherous, right? We have these things in our history. So just being around a prophet or being around an imam or hearing those teachings is not enough, right? So there's something more to that as well. So the best thing for us to remember as parents is that 0 to 7 phase when they're the master, which is very difficult for us as parents. That is the most crucial phase. It's tough for us to see a child who doesn't know right from wrong, who doesn't know anything about the world, for us to make them the master. Again, there's a lot of details behind that. Inshallah, if we have time, maybe when we do these Q&As after the programs, we can open up a bit more. Or if people are interested, maybe every night we'll just mention 1 or 2 points here and there. But the emphasis here is that 0 to 7 phase. If this phase is not done correctly, meaning you don't let the child be free, you don't let them play. For example, if the child runs around here during the majlis, I have no problem with that. And we shouldn't have a problem with that as well. We should let them be free. In the same way that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he was giving his khutbahs, what do we always remind ourselves of? That Imam Hasan, Imam Hussein alayhi salam were running around the masjid, making noise, falling down, playing. We just recited a few nights ago how during a khutbah, the Prophet sees that in the back the children are playing. Right? Habib is playing with Imam Hussein. So play is a part of our Islamic culture. And those of you who have gone to Iraq or Iran, who have been to the harams, you've seen that children are running around while people are giving speeches. So this is something that unfortunately hasn't really come into our cultures yet in the West. We usually are a bit harsher on children, especially younger children. Whereas the Islamic teachings say, especially from 0 to 7, they should be free, they learn through playing, and you have to keep them open like that. And again, there's a lot more we can discuss here, but I can't go into everything because that would take a lot of time. So just keep this in mind, inshallah. Salawat ala Next question. The ayat, or these words, kun fayakun, are mentioned so many times in the Quran. But if this is the case, kun fayakun meaning be, and then it is, right? If Allah's saying be, and then it's just supposed to come into existence, why did it take God 6 or 7 days to make the heaven and the earth and everything else? The person saying that, I have no doubt in my mind, I'm just curious, why did it take so long when it could happen in the blink of an eye? And this is a really interesting and wonderful question. So this topic of time, of zaman, in Islamic philosophy and irfan is a topic that's discussed in books and books and books, right? It's a really heavy concept, really sanguine. So we'll mention it like this. And again, I'll have to only give 1 or 2 sentence answers, right? I can't go into details. So if, let's say, in your mind, you decide to make a dream house, right? The perfect house in your mind, what does it look like, right? Right now, I'm sure all of you can picture it in an instant, right? You know exactly what it looks like, how big it is, how many rooms it has, what color it is, what size the basement is, if it has a basement, upstairs, this many rooms, these kind of bathrooms, etc. You can think about this thing in an instant, right? If I tell you to picture anything, you just have to stop, use your mind, you can think of it just like that. But now, if you want it to come to life, if you want it to be realized, if you want it to manifest, to become mutahaqqaq in this reality, well then there's this thing called causality, illiyat. There's causes and effects. You have to get a builder, you have to get contractors, you have to get supplies. All these things have to happen to build your dream house. Now it's not your fault, that's just the nature of building a house. You can make it in your mind in an instant, but in order to make it realized out here, the nature of a real house is that it takes all this time to be built. So for Allah, yes, in His mind, all of reality happens like that, kun fayakun. But because you and I, and fire, and the world, and earth, and the skies, all have to work under cause and effect, it takes time. Allah's not bound by time, but everything else is bound by time. So it's not Allah's quote-unquote fault. It's not because of Allah. Allah could do everything if He wanted to in an instant, but it's our weaknesses, or it's the nature of the earth, or the nature of heaven, or the nature of fire that it needs oxygen and a spark and all these things. Everything else has these specific khususiyat, right, and mahiyat, all these qualities. Because of those qualities, that's why it takes time. But otherwise, for Allah, it happens in the blink of an eye. Salawat ala Muhammad wa Can husband and wife stand side by side and pray next to each other? My understanding is no, but I need a logical answer to convince the other party. I'm wondering if the other party is the husband or wife. Okay. So again, the question is, I'm a little, it's not confusing, but it depends on how the question's being asked. Are we saying the husband and wife are praying jama'at, or are they praying furada? Are they praying together, or are they praying by themselves, right? That's one thing we have to understand. Now, a logical answer to convince the other party. Are we saying that it's a non-Muslim you're trying to convince? Is it another Muslim? Again, there's a lot of things that I'm not sure about. But let's give one type of answer. If it's unclear, then you can clarify on Slido or when we have any of these Q&As. So, in Jama'at prayers, many of us are under this misconception that you have to have 5 people, right? Otherwise you can't have Jama'at prayers. I've heard this a lot in many communities. Jama'at prayers is this. It's one imam and one follower. That's all you need. So 2 people can make a Jama'at prayer. That number 5 comes when you want to try to offer Salatul Jum'ah. 5 people are required for Friday prayers. And those 5 people need to be people who are from that specific area, and they have to be males as well, right? So that's a different issue. So anyway, so now you have 2 people, husband and wife, for example, right? When they want to pray side by side, which they should be. In every household where you have a husband and wife who are both Muslims, they should be praying Jamaat every time, right? This is the best way that you can pray. And this is the best way you can encourage your children to pray in your Jamaat as well. Again, Islamic parenting, right? Lead by example instead of forcing them. So the husband would stand, and this is, I'm giving you the mustahab rulings now. So the husband would stand, I don't know how I'm going to do it like this. So the husband standing this way, if our qibla is pointing this direction. If the husband stands like this, the wife, it's allowed for her to stand to his, there we go, to his right. And she should be far enough back so that when she makes sujood, it shouldn't go farther than the place where his knees are. Does that make sense? Let me say it again. Okay, how am I going to do it? Okay, if I had a slide, I'd show you there. Maybe I'll do that for some other night. So, for the wife, if you're praying in Jamaat next to your husband, the place where you're placing your turba, your sajda, your muh, it should not be ahead. Like it should be at least or at most in line where your husband's knees are. So for ihtiyat, you can put it a little bit behind where his knees will reach. Right? That's what you're allowed to do. And that's mustahab for you to pray side by side. If it's 2 males, right? If it's 2 men who are praying Jamaat, they can be side by side. There's no problem with that. Hopefully that's enough. Again, I don't know about logical answer. I don't know what that means. The most logic I can give you is look in the fatwa book of your marja. Inshallah, you can find that ruling there. Salawat ala Muhammad wa
If they are doing rather than
if you need a husband and wife are doing furada. This one I'll have to double check because normally for, yeah, let me double check that and see because I didn't look that one up specifically. So I'll see inshallah and then I'll mention tomorrow night. Jazakallah. Okay.
What if it's not her husband?
What if it's a non-mahram,
yes,
a mahram?
non-mahram, can she see through by his knee?
So when I looked for the fatwa in the books, so the sister was asking, what if it's a non-mahram, right? What if it's not your wife Or what if it's not your sister or mother or anybody that you're mahram to? Then what? What if it's just some random person? Now, why you're reading in Jamaat with a random woman, well, I don't know, but hey, whatever. I guess sometimes these things happen, right? Especially in this country. Who knows? So, in the actual fatwa books, I didn't see any shart or condition that says that this woman has to be your mahram. But sometimes I didn't look into like the deeper books. So let me double check with some of my teachers or into some of the more deeper books, and I'll see if I can get a clearer answer, inshallah, for that, because I don't want to give a wrong answer. But jazakallah for that. Salawat ala Muhammad. Okay, with your permission, I mentioned I wanted to do 2 more questions tonight because I checked on Slido, and every time I'm checking, 5 or 6 or 7 questions are coming every night. And if that's the case, I'm going to have to try to do 5 or 6 every night. Because if I don't do that, again, they're going to stack up. And one of the, if you remember, those of you who were here in 2016, I left a feedback form, right, at the last night. And one of the main criticisms was that there was no opportunity for question and answer. And because the programs that are happening here are happening late at night, and obviously for the weekday programs, people have work the next day, they have school the next day, so we can't stay late after every single program, right? We want to make sure that we leave enough time for musiba, for matam and latamiyah, right? We don't want to drag on with everything. So we do have a topic, and I will get to that inshallah, but I want to answer a few more questions with your permission inshallah before we get on to the main discussion. If you can send another salawat ala Muhammad. So with that said, I think I'll answer this one. So the person had requested, can we shorten the question and answer time and have more faza'il on the Imams alayhimus salam's lives and more mention of Imam Zaman? So obviously me extending it, the answer is no. Sorry. No, but I have to explain, I guess. So, and again, I'm trying to do this with the utmost respect, so, you know, I hope I'm not misunderstood. So I've been coming to this community since, I believe, 2012, maybe even 2011. I think 2012 is the first time I came, early on for maybe Fatimiyya, for like a weekend. And then an Ashra happened then, and then 2016, and then this would be, I guess, your 3rd or maybe 4th time. So obviously, it seems like I'm doing something right, otherwise I wouldn't keep getting these invitations, right? Alhamdulillah. And you know, I enjoy being with this community a lot. So every single one of these times, the same request has come about more faza'il if you can, you know, more, mention more about the lives of the imams, or specifically their fada'il, right? Their traits, their characteristics, what makes them so great, or more about history maybe. So this has come from certain individuals every time, and every single time I've been here, I've tried to answer it, right, in different ways. And I've tried from a very, I'll put, soft manner, and then in 2016, it got a little bit more forceful. And I don't know what, you know, option I have left now in 2018. So I also mentioned this last week. We talked about what the minbar should be used for, especially in the month of Muharram. So it's interesting because, you know, I mentioned it, again, 2012. I mentioned it in 2016. I mentioned it last week. And I tried to address the issue with more and more information, with proofs from the words of the Ahlul Bayt. And in 2016, I mentioned the specific advice from Ayatollah Sistani, may Allah protect him, about what should a muballigh do in the month of Muharram. What should they talk about? And he specifically says they should talk about contemporary issues. And he doesn't recommend talking about fada'il and things which are, let's say, controversial or whatever it is. So if that's the case, on one hand, I see that people are requesting. And again, I don't want to upset anybody, and I'd like to get feedback from the community, and I welcome that. But on the other side, I see the advice from the Ahlul Bayt. I see the seerah and the actual methodology that the Ahlul Bayt used. And then I see the advice of the ulama, the maraji, right? Not just regular people, but the maraji. So if I'm weighing out these 2 different proofs, obviously which way am I going to go? Or which way should we go? This would be this is my left hand, this is your right. This is, yeah, okay. So now, again, I want to make sure, we have a saying in the Hausa, نَحْنُ أَبْنَاءُ الدَّلِيلِ نَمِيلُ حَيْثُ يَمِيلُ. Literally, it means we are the children of dalil, of proof, of arguments. And we go in the direction that the arguments go. What does that mean? Our teachers always reminded us that don't stick to any one ideology, don't stick to one philosophy, because somebody can come and prove you wrong. So, and I say the same thing over here. If somebody does have the proof, or they have a good argument for why, for example, we should talk about the fada'il of Ahlul Bayt, I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to talk afterwards, if you'd like to, and you can give me what your proofs are. Now, if your proof is going to be that this is the way that we did it back in the day, this is how we've always been doing it, that won't be enough for me. Because again, I have the advice from the Maraji, I have the Sira of the Ahlul Bayt, and I have their words, which I mentioned last week. So you have to bring a stronger argument than that. And if you can bring me words of Ahlul Bayt, then inshallah, I do ita'at of them, and I'll listen to that inshallah. So forgive me for, again, the way that I decide to put my lectures together and these discussions together. I'm open to anybody's criticisms, and those who have offered criticism, I believe that for the most part I've been receptive to them. But for this one, I'm putting my feet down, not because it's my feet, because this is the Pak and Tahir feet of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi wa salam. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. And then the final question, inshallah, is going to be, of course, the most controversial one, if that wasn't controversial enough. So the person says, what are your thoughts on homosexuality? I personally don't agree with it. Okay, well first, with all due respect, personally agreeing with it or disagreeing with it is not a criteria for our school of thought. But I understand what you mean. Now, what are my thoughts on it? That doesn't matter as well. Again, we as followers of Ahlul Bayt are looking for the actual rule. What does Allah say about this issue? Now again, this is a controversial issue nowadays, especially given the kind of political and social climate, right? And we've seen, unfortunately, many of our good scholars have gotten in big trouble for addressing this issue. So I have to be careful as well. So, I'll give you points to think about, because I don't want to go in details from the minbar. Those who are interested, inshallah, we can talk about it afterwards or at a Q&A. So when we hear this concept of homosexuality, and those who say it shouldn't be addressed from here, I'm telling you, if I don't address it, or we don't address it right here, it's going to be addressed in school, and they're going to hear the side that you don't want to hear. So it needs to be addressed from our minbar. The same way that the Ahlul Bayt didn't hide any concept from the minbar, we have to follow in that same seerah. So, there's two different things we have to understand. When we think about this topic, there's thoughts, or inclinations, or feelings, and then there's actions. So, for example, let's say, after a program, there's food being offered downstairs. And we know that it's haram for us to overeat, right? We're not allowed to do that. So if we go downstairs and there's all this food available, you eat food and now you're full. In your mind, you have the inclination, right? The food was good, so you want to eat more. You desire to eat more. Is that thought, is that idea haram? Will you get punished for that? No. You don't get punished for your thoughts, for your feelings. If, let's say, there's someone that you see in the community that you happen to have interest in, and you get a certain thought or feeling in your mind, are you punishable for that? No, because it's just a thought in your mind. It's just a feeling that you have. Now, if you go forward and act on something which is being prohibited in Islam, now that's when the Sharia comes in and says this is punishable. And there's something that's even more so. It's not just about performing an action. It's about going around and promoting the action too. Because there are some people who might say, for example, let's go back to the eating analogy, that say, there's nothing wrong with overeating. Let me give a very, very personal kind of story, or the simple one that happens every time. When I'll be sitting down with members of communities, when I'll say, I'm full, I had enough, they said, no, you have to eat more. I said, okay. So when people come from Hawza or who are students, the first thing you complain about is how obese they are, how big they are. And then when I come and sit down and we have lunch together, the first thing you're trying to do is make me obese. So I see a little hypocrisy here, right? I see some double standards. So I hope, inshallah, the point got across, right? And if, again, you want more details, we can talk about that afterwards, inshallah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa One more salawat ala Muhammad. We were talking about hubb al-dunya last night, right? There's a difference between having or being involved in worldly things, having a job and making money, it's fine. But if you're attached and in love with money, well, then we have a problem. If your money is being used for the sake of Allah, for example, donations to help build another center. There you go, Dr. Sayyid. If that's what you're using it for and you're not attached to it, then it's okay, it's good, you're supposed to do that. But if you're hoarding it and holding on to it when you shouldn't be, when you should be spending it for the sake of Allah, well, that means that you're attached and you're worshipping your money. We said that the reason that the material world keeps us away from understanding God is what? It's because, what's going on? Is because what? Well, again, we're just rephrasing this. I don't want to go through the whole thing. What we said that Allah is pure and absolute perfection, right? Allah is pure, mutlaq perfection. The dunya, the world is what? It's absolute pure imperfection. Everything that we do in this world, everything you go after, it's going to go away. It's going to go away. Anything you eat, that taste goes away in a few seconds. You eat something, you get full, you'll get hungry a few hours later. You get money, it's going to spend, and you'll have to get more. You get happy from something, it'll go away. Everything in this world is made to be destroyed. It's set up for fana, for annihilation. It's going to go away. The only thing that will remain is wajh Allah. Allah is the only thing that remains. So when you have perfection next to imperfection, you can only pick one. If you get attached to imperfection, then there's no room for God left. But when you start attaching yourself to God, then this imperfection, that love for it, starts going away. So that's what we're saying, that worship, ibadat, leads you to ma'rifat of Allah. Push away from the dunya, you get closer to Allah through ibadat. So, heaven is what? It's a way for us to get a taste of what perfection is like. When we get a taste of imperfection in this dunya, it's setting us up for failure in heaven. If we're addicted to food, for example, the imperfect food in this world, then we wouldn't be able to understand and enjoy that perfect food in the next world. This is why the dunya keeps us away from ma'rifat and keeps us away from heaven. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. We have a hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi. He says, عَذُمَ الْخَالِقُ فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ فَصَغُرَ مَا دُونَهُ فِي أَعْيُنِهِمْ. He says, in the nafs, in the identity, in the soul, in your being of somebody who, let me put it this way. So the greatness of the Creator will sit in your hearts, right? If you do this, then what happens? Everything else will become small in your eyes. So if we can start to understand how great Allah is, then everything else over here becomes nothing, right? The more we understand Allah's greatness, the greatness of the Khaliq, His Azima, then everything else becomes saghir, becomes less and less and less. Because obviously, if you're looking and your face is facing towards perfection, then everything else looks like a waste. Everything else is insignificant in your eyes. Based on this is now where we move on to our next topic. We have this idea that we want to move into, inshallah. I wanted to start with the idea of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, but because tonight we're going to be reciting the musibah of our great, renowned, wonderful member of the Ahlul Bayt, and Banu Hashim Ali al-Akbar alayhi salam, we want to go through him. We want to dedicate this night to the concept of adhan, because we know he is our mu'adhin, the mu'adhin of Karbala. So first, we want to talk about this idea. What should be in our mind? What is the value of adhan? Again, we're trying to move beyond simply saying a bunch of words in Arabic. So besides us recognizing the meaning of the words and translating them, we want to have a deeper understanding of what should we feel? What should it be like in our minds, in our hearts, whenever we hear that call to prayer? Let me mention another hadith. This also comes from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. He says, "Inna shaytan idha sami'a nida'a bis-salah haraba." Whenever shaitan, whenever he hears the call to prayer, whenever he hears the adhan, then he runs, right? He runs away scared. He escapes. He flees. Inna ahl as-sama' la yasma'una min ahl al-ard shay'an illa al-adhan. The things that the people that live in the heavens, things like angels, right? Those high-level beings. This hadith that Imam's saying that the only thing that they can hear from us is our call for adhan, right? Now again, we have other narrations which talk about what the heavens, what the angels and other high-level beings can hear. So perhaps kind of the emphasis is just on the value of adhan, not that the only thing that they're hearing is adhan, but to show us the value of that. We have another hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa where it says, and this we should really focus in on and pay attention to. It says, سَيَأْتِي عَلَى النَّاسِ زَمَانٌ يَتْرَكُونَ الْأَذَانَ عَلَى ضُعَفَائِهِمْ. In the future, there's going to come a time when people will just pass away and toss out and throw away the adhan to people who are weak or who will belittle it, right? See, we have to understand the importance of adhan, especially in the history of Islam and the way that it's mentioned in our fiqh books. They say that, you know that we have this concept of Baytul Mal, right? The taxes that are collected in an Islamic government and an Islamic empire. And from the Baytul Mal, people, certain individuals are supposed to be paid, right? So for example, one of the things happens to be those who have government positions, right? In an Islamic government, the taxes from the Islamic government, the Baytul Mal, are taken so they can get their income and their pay. One of the other things that sometimes some of our maraja recommend is that the official mu'adhin for the masajid, they should be paid for their adhan. Now you know sometimes when we invite individuals, let's say aqari, someone who has a beautiful recitation of Quran, or you have someone who beautifully recites poetry, like Nohe Latniya and things like that, then obviously because they remind us of the Ahlul Bayt, when they recite it, they make our hearts soft, right? They remind us of the tragedy of Karbala. We want to give them gifts, right? Because of that softness they put in our hearts, so we want to offer them something, right? So in Islam, it's been highly recommended that the mu'adhin, the one who recites adhan, also be given these kind of gifts, given money, especially from the taxes of the Muslimin. Now, how is this the case? Why is it the case? They say, on the day of resurrection, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, when most of the people will be humiliated due to their shame, the mu'adhin will be raised honorably with these high maqamat. The mu'adhin has a share in the reward of those who prayed through the agency of his adhan. See, the mu'adhin is not just some guy or girl who comes and just says the adhan to let everybody know, hey, it's time to pray. The mu'adhin has a deeper duty than that. Their duty is to remind us of who Allah is. Remind us of who we really are. Think about it. We're saying Allahu Akbar. We're saying Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Aliyyun waliyullah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala falah. Hayya ala khayril amal. We're trying to think about and remind ourselves, okay, where are we about to go? What are we about to do? Are we about to just go and walk and just, again, make some movements just so that we don't get punished? Why are we getting up there and talking to Allah? Who are we talking to? If we forgot about it before salah time, the mu'adhin's job is to remind us. And the best way he can do that is with a beautiful voice. Now sometimes, and again, I don't mean an offense to anyone here. And again, I have nobody specifically in mind, of course, as well. But sometimes we just pass on the adhan, like, just find some person to make him say the adhan. Now, would we do this for other things? Would we do this, for example, I think this is a good example for us who have an attachment to azadari. Do we want, for example, those who, again, with all due respect, whose voices don't make us connect with the gham of Ahlul Bayt? Again, having a nice voice is a gift from Allah, which not everybody's been given. It doesn't make somebody better or worse. This is just something that Allah has provided. A gift like this needs to be used by the person whom Allah has wanted to give it to. The job of the mu'adhin is to make sure you recognize who Allah is. When that mu'adhin, when the person reciting adhan is saying Allahu Akbar, you shouldn't just be, okay, let me make wudu now and get ready to pray. He should say it in a way that your heart starts feeling at ease. That, oh, okay, now I need to get ready for salah. And this is why we have this same idea from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When he would tell Bilal, the first mu'adhin in the history of Islam, he says, Bilal, arihna bi-adhan. Bilal, give me this coolness, like refresh us with your adhan. They say that, like we mentioned the other day, the Prophet, the Imams, they were dying for the time of Salah to come. They would be shaking, they'd be waiting, they'd be anxious. And let me give an example, because sometimes we don't understand, like, what do you mean they were anxious for salah, they were waiting for it? Let me give you a real life example that I think all of us, inshallah, or hopefully not inshallah, but inshallah I think we're all going to understand. In the month of Ramadan, let's say Maghrib time is 8:50. It's 8:48. What's going through your mind? What's going through your stomach? Right? What's going on through your mouth? You're sitting there like, come on, you're dying for that adhan. So much so, what happens, right? If 8:50 hits and it's not being recited, then of course everybody becomes an audif all of a sudden. Why are we delaying the prayers? What's going on? Where's the person reciting the adhan? Hurry up, we have to recite prayers on time. Let's go. Why are we delaying? This is not right. But then sometimes in other months, like the month of Muharram, if let's say the poetry or the matam or something goes beyond the time for salah, that's okay, it's ibadah, it's not a big deal. Well, iftar was an ibadah too, and you were so harsh for that. But when azadari happens, then everything switches. Again, I'm not saying what you should be delaying and what you shouldn't be delaying salah for. I'm saying that it looks like the animalistic, lowest version of ourselves exists in Ramadan. That's dying for namaz, which is not really dying for salah, it's dying for a samosa, right? But the Prophet saying, I'm dying to talk to Allah. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for that waqt, that zaman, that maghrib, that adhan. I'm waiting for that. I want you, Bilal, to remind me of that. So that when we walk forward, when we all come forward, we can bow ourselves. We can be humble in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imagine if we, those who recite the adhan to this community, and mashallah, we have wonderful people who recite adhan here, using their voices, in their minds first and foremost, they're thinking about the value of adhan, their connection to Allah, and when they're doing that, they're able to transmit that same connection to everybody else. In the same way that when a poet, when they truly are connected to the Ahlul Bayt, when they're crying for the gham of Ali al-Akbar, and they're transmitting that to you, if that sadness and that gham and that bala is in their hearts, we all can feel that too. But if they're reciting it because of nifaq, or they're just reciting it because they want everybody to hear their voice, or because they, again, based on egotism, or their nafs, or whatever other bad reason, if they're doing it for that reason, we can all feel that too. Sometimes even individuals who have a nice voice, right, when they're reciting, you can feel that, I don't feel ikhlas when they're reciting. It doesn't hit you the same way. But sometimes, even if somebody doesn't have a good voice, but they have that connection to the Ahlul Bayt, you feel that, right? You become connected with that person as well. So those of us who recite Quran, those of us who recite Adhan, and especially those of us in this month of Muharram who are giving us that connection to Ahlul Bayt through poetry, which we should encourage everybody to do, those of us who have that ability, connect yourself first to the Ahlul Bayt and to Allah, and give us and share with us that same connection that you've developed. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. Now that we've understood a little bit about the adhan, now you can understand, really understand, the value, the maqam, the darajah of Ali al-Akbar. Why is the adhan on the morning of Ashura so important? It's because of the station of Ali al-Akbar. Imam Hussein is not trying to fight anybody, in his own words. He's not trying to destroy a government. He's not trying to fight an army. He's trying to save those soldiers from hellfire. He's following in the same seerah of Rahmatun lil Alameen. His whole job is to manifest mercy, to show everybody what Rahmatun lil Alameen means. And he realizes that on the morning of Ashura, the best way that he can do itmam al-hujjah, the best way that he can remind people of their duty to Rasulullah is to send out the person who looks like Rasulullah. Send out the person who sounds like Rasulullah. Send out the person who has the akhlaq and the adab of Rasulullah. They say that whenever people came to Medina after the Prophet passed, and they asked the ashab, what did our Prophet look like? What did he sound like? How did he act? How did he speak? How did he cry? How did he eat? How did he walk? They say, if you want to see Rasulullah, look at the son of Hussein. Every single thing that was Rasulullah you find in Ali al-Akbar. When they hear that adhan on the morning of Ashura, some people's hearts begin to shake. And this allows, according to some historians, some people now to change sides. Just hearing that adhan one more time in the voice of Rasulullah. Mu'mineen, mu'minat. You know, any other person on Ashura, they had to come to Imam to ask for permission. Abbas had to come over and over again and ask, Ya Mawla, give me permission to fight. Aun and Muhammad came forward, Zuhair came forward, Habib came forward asking for permission. Last night we said Qasim came forward and was denied permission. But when it comes to the family, when it comes to the son of Hussein, Hussein himself goes to his son and says, Taqaddam ya bunayya. No, you are my representative, you go out first. No one else had this blessing and ni'mah. They say that when Akbar was doing his final Khuda Hafiz, his final salam, his al-wida, when he was saying goodbye to all the women in the tents, there's someone who was present there as well. This historian, this reporter, saw that every time the tents, the flaps of the tents opened on the women's side, Ali Akbar would try to take a step out and then he'd be pulled back in. The historian says it looked like a janazah was taking place. That every time the body would come out, it'd be pulled back in. Akbar would try to take one step out and Sakina would come and grab him and, Ya Akha, come back, let me see you one more time. He'd try to take a step out and his mother would grab him, let me do ziyarat of Rasulullah one more time. He'd step out and Zainab would hug him and say, no, come back, we want to see Rasulullah's face one more time, don't leave us just yet. Now Ali Akbar goes out onto the battlefield, he fights valiantly. And Hussein, he's looking out. This is a father watching his son go out to battle. No one can understand what's going on in the heart of Hussein. Now, anyone else that goes out, Hussein has one idea. But when Ali Akbar goes out, he's an imam, of course, but he's a father too. And he's watching this happen. And Akbar is hearing footsteps coming behind him. When he turns around, he sees Hussein following behind him. He says, Ya Abada, why are you following me? You've given me permission. You sent me to come outside. You sent me to go fight. He says, Ya Bunayya, you have no idea. You don't know what it feels like for a father to watch his son go out for the last time. Promise me that you'll come back to me. Akbar goes out and fights. And Hussein knows that if I want my dua to be answered, if I want my Akbar to come back to me, then the mother should make the dua, not me. So he calls the mother of Akbar, he calls Layla out and tells her, Layla, make a dua that our Akbar comes back to us. I want to see him one more time, one more ziyarah. Layla raises her hands in the air and says, Allah, you are the one who returned Yusuf to Yaqub. Return my Yusuf to us. Return our Yusuf back to us. Akbar, in the middle of the battle, comes back and says another salam to his father, another salam to Layla. But then he says these lines which break Hussein's heart. He says, Ya Abata, did you see me fighting there? Did I do a good job? He says, yes, marhaba, marhaba ya bunayya. He says, Abata, al-atash qad qatalni. Baba, this thirst, it's killing me though. I want to go out, I want to fight more, but I'm getting really thirsty. And this sword that I was holding, it's getting too heavy for me now. Is there anything you can give me? Can you imagine the fathers who are sitting here? If your son, if your daughter came to you and gave you a request, their final request, and you couldn't answer them, you couldn't give it to them, how would you feel? This is Hussein talking to his son for the last time, and he can't do anything for him. He has to send Akbar out for the last time. Akbar goes out and begins fighting once again. And when he comes, now all the enemies focus their efforts on him. One person takes a spear and drives it through the heart of Akbar. Someone else comes and strikes with the sword on the head of Akbar. And when the blood becomes too much, Akbar puts his head down and grabs the head and lays his head down on the horse, on the horse's head. When that happens, the blood that was coming from his head dripped down onto the eyes of the horse so that the horse couldn't see anything anymore. When the horse couldn't see, it got scared and began running in all directions. But the one direction it shouldn't have ran, it ran into. It ran towards the enemy lines. But when it came to the enemy's lines, a defenseless Akbar was hit from spears and rocks and swords from all different sides. And finally, when it became too much for him, he fell off his horse. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, understand. When every other person was calling for Hussein, they would call, Ya Mawla Adirikni. When other people were calling, they'd say, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. But now Hussein has to hear, Ya Abada, Baba, Adirikni. Hussein tries to run towards Akbar. And Akbar is laying there, Ajrukum Allah. Give me a few more minutes to recite the musibah of Akbar. Akbar is sitting there laying down, and he notices that whenever my father came to anybody else, he came quickly, he ran towards them. Why is my father taking so long? Oh, I know, he thinks to himself, maybe it's because he's looking for water. Maybe I shouldn't have told him about that. So he yells out, he says, Baba, don't worry, I see your grandfather, I see Rasulullah here. He's giving me water, don't worry, come to me, Baba. And then Hussein finally reaches the body of Akbar. When he comes down, he sees that a spear is stuck in the chest of Akbar. Well, meaning you have to listen to this one last part, and then Matam Hussein, listen to this one final line. The one thing that destroyed the heart of Hussein. Hussein is sitting there next to the body of Akbar. And when he came to every other body, we need to understand. When he came to Abbas, he sat down next to him. When he came to Hur, he sat down next to him and put his head on his lap. When he came to On and Muhammad, he came down and laid down next to them. But when he came and saw what happened to his son Akbar, he fell down on top of him. A father can't handle seeing his son like this. He sees Akbar's hand hiding something. He sees that spear there. He says, Baba, can you take this thing out of my heart? I can't handle this pain anymore. Hussein has to give and answer the one last request from his son. Now what can Hussein do? We only can imagine. Hussein puts one knee on the sand of Karbala. He puts his other knee on the chest of Akbar. He needs to brace himself. He puts his hands on the spear, and there's only one person that can help him now. Maybe he turns his face towards Najah. Ya Ali, Baba, Madadi. Hussein pulls the spear out of the chest of Akbar. When the spear comes out, the ruh of Akbar. ألا لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون بظلم قضائه والتسليم. يا حسين. 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 Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. आसान नहीं पढ़ना नौहा अली अकबर का सरवर से कोई पूछे मरना अली अकबर का लैला ने कहा रो किस तरह करूं रुखसत लैला ने कहा रो किस तरह करूं रुखसत मैं देख के जीती हूँ चेहरा अली अकबर का मरने को ज़्यादा रो ये जुल्म ही काफी नेज़े से हुआ ज़ख्मी सीना अली अकबर
گئی، اب آپ سہارا دیں، یا شاہ نجف بڑھ گئی، اب آپ سہارا دیں، سرور سے نہیں اٹھتا لاشا علی اکبر کا، دہلیز پہ سر رکھے آنسو لیے آنکھوں میں، بیماری بہن دیکھے رستا علی اکبر کا، آسانی نہیں پڑھنا نوحہ علی اکبر کا، یا حسین 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 یا حسین، لاشیں دبئی پہ شاہ جب پہنچے، دل کو ہاتھوں سے تھام کر بولے، تیری فرقت میں علی اکبر، آگ دل میں میرے لگا دی ہے، آگ دل کی بجھاؤں میں کیسے، آگ دل کی بجھاؤں میں کیسے، تیرا لاشا اٹھاؤں میں کیسے، اکبر میرا شہر ہمارا، اکبر اکبر میرا شہر ہمارا، اکبر اکبر میرا شہر ہمارا، اکبر، لاش اکبر پہ شاہ جب پہنچے، دل کو ہاتھوں سے تھام کر بولے، تیری فرقت نے علی اکبر، آگ دل میں میرے لگا دی ہے، آگ دل کی بجھاؤں میں کیسے، آگ دل کی بجھاؤں میں کیسے، تیرا لاشا اٹھاؤں میں کیسے، اکبر میرا شہر ہمارا، اکبر اکبر میرا شہر ہمارا، اکبر، تو ہے کریم جوان ہے بیٹا، باپ تیرا ضعیف ہے کتنا، نور آنکھوں سے ہو گیا رخصت، مجھ کو آتا نظر نہیں خیمہ، لے کے خیمہ لے جاؤں میں کیسے، لے جاؤں میں کیسے، تیرا لاشا اٹھاؤں میں کیسے، اکبر میرا شہر ہمارا، اکبر اکبر میرا شہر ہمارا، اکبر، جس نے 18 سال پالا تھا، کیسے دیکھے گی وہ تیرا لاشا، تیری شادی کا تاج سے ارماں، کیسے جھیلے گی وہ تیرا صدمہ، تیری ماں کو بتاؤں میں دیکھ آیا کافی دے سغرا راہ تکتی ہے وہ دکھی بہنا تجھ کو بیمار نے بلایا ہے وعدہ سغرا کا کیوں بھلا ڈالا غم یہ دل سے لگاؤں میں کیسے غم یہ دل سے لگاؤں میں کیسے تیرا لاشا اٹھاؤں میں کیسے اکبر میرا شہر والا اکبر اکبر میرا شہر والا اکبر بھائی بہنوں کا ہے عجب رشتہ جس کا ثانی کہیں نہیں ملتا لوگ زبراں نے لکھا اکبر ایک دکھیا کی لاج رکھ لینا مر گیا تو بتاؤ میں کیسے مر گیا تو بتاؤ میں کیسے تیرا لاشا اٹھاؤ میں کیسے اکبر میرا شہر والا اکبر اکبر میرا شہر والا اکبر لطف جینے میں اب کہاں اکبر دل سے اٹھتی ہے یہ فغاں اکبر صبح عاشور دی تھی جو تو نے خمر لائے کہ وہ اکبر تیری صورت بلاؤں میں کیسے تیری صورت بلاؤں میں کیسے تیرا لاشا اٹھاؤں میں کیسے اکبر میرا شہر والا اکبر اکبر میرا شہر والا اکبر ضبط غم کا محال ہے بیٹا دیکھو کیسے یہ زخم سینے کا میں تو پردیس میں اکیلا ہوں دیکھ کر زخم کیا کروں بیٹا اس پہ مرہم لگاؤں میں کیسے مرہم لگاؤں میں کیسے تیرا لاشا اٹھاؤں میں کیسے اکبر میرا شہر والا اکبر اکبر میرا شہر والا اکبر ایسی غربت میں منہ نہیں موڑو میں ہوں تنہا مجھے نہیں چھوڑو کیا گزرتی ہے باپ کے دل پر غمزدہ دل سے یوں نہیں توڑو اپنی غربت بتاؤ میں کیسے اپنی غربت بتاؤ میں کیسے تیرا لاشا اٹھاؤ میں کیسے اکبر میرا شہر والا اکبر اکبر میرا شہر والا اکبر حسین 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 جانا حسین جانا حسین جان 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 اگر کشتن چرا آمد ندارد اگر کشتن چرا آمد ندارد چرا زادت آیامد ندارد اگر کشتن چرا خواهد نکردد اگر کشتن چرا خواهد نکردد کفن برگز مثل چاکر نکردد اگر کشتن چرا موید کشیدد اگر کشتن چرا موید کشیدد چو گرگان پنجه بر رویت کشیدد حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان 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 برادرم به سوره آن زمانی برادرم سلیمان زمانی چرا انگشت انگشتر نداری برادرم سلیمان زمانی برادرم سلیمان زمانی چرا انگشت انگشتر نداری چرا برکت چرا درصد نداری چرا بدل چرا درصد نداری بمیرم من مگر مادر نداری بمیرم من مگر مادر نداری خودم دیدم حسین را سر بریدم خودم دیدم حسین را سر بریدن خودم دیدم که در خونش کشیدن خودم دیدم جلوی اصغرم را خودم دیدم جلوی اصغرم را خودم در بر کشیدم اکبرم را حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان تموم زندگی مانه حسین دلم هموار دنباله حسین تموم زندگی مانه حسین دلم هموار دنباله حسین مگه حدی که بد شد آقا مگه حدی که بد شد آقا مگه حدی بد شد دل نداره مگه عشقت برام حاصل نداره گلی گفتم میدونم اورا گلی گفتم میدونم اورا به هر گلی قسم میبون اورا گلی گم کردم میدونم جویم را گلی گم کردم می جویم را به هر گل می رسم می گویم را گل من یک نشانی در بدن یکی پیراهنه کهنه بزن اگر پیدا کنم زیبا گلم را اگر پیدا کنم زیبا گلم را به آب دیدگان می شویم او را حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان حسین جانم حسین حسین
کہتی تھی ماں خوں بھری مئی یا سے لپٹ کر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ارمان تھا پہناؤں گی پوشاک شہانی ارمان تھا پہناؤں گی پوشاک شہانی افسوس کے راس آئی نہ تجھ کو یہ جوانی کیسا تھا مقدر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر کہتی یہ ماں بھری مئی یا سے لپٹ کر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر اتنا تو ذرا ٹھہرو تمہیں دولہا بناؤں اتنا تو ذرا ٹھہرو تمہیں دولہا بنا دوں بس ایک جھلک شہر کی صبح رات کو دکھا دوں بے چین تھی خاطر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر کہتی تھی ماں خوں بھری مئی یاد سے لپٹ کر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر 18 برس پال کے پروان چڑھایا 18 برس پال کے پروان چڑھایا وہ گیسوں والا ہے میرا خون میں نہایا یہ کیا ہوا دل پر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر کہتی تھی ماں خوں بھری مئی یاد سے لپٹ کر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ماں تیری جدائی میں بھلا کیسے جیے گی ماں تیری جدائی میں بھلا کیسے मर जाएगी सुरा तो खबर तेरी सुनेगी अब क्या करूँ जी कर हाय हाय अली अकबर हाय हाय अली अकबर कहती थी माँ भरी मैया से लिपट कर हाय हाय अली अकबर हाय हाय अली अकबर तुम्हें छिया लेके जो दम तोड़ रहे हो तुम्हें छिया लेके जो दम तोड़ रहे हो मुँह से हमेशा के लिए मोड़ रहे हो क्यों रूठे हो दिल पर हाय हाय अली अकबर हाय हाय अली अकबर कहती थी माँ भरी मैया से लिपट कर हाय हाय अली अकबर हाय हाय अली अकबर आए जो हमें लूटने में सितम कर आए जो हमें लूटने में सितम कर मारेगी सदा अली अकबर छिन जाएगी चादर हाय हाय अली अकबर हाय हाय अली अकबर कहती थी माँ भरी मैया से लिपट कर हाय हाय अली अकबर हाय हाय अली अकबर या हुसैन 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 या हुसैन
مجهز حسين قل القابر وين يا مجهز حسين قل القابر وين عن جثته عشان شلت النابل زين عن جثته عشان شلت النابل زين هلت دموعه وقالها يا عمك شفت بلا راس الطف اليمن موضوع وعريان والغسل دمه بس لا ترى صار من دامع العين يا مجهز حسين كل القابر وين مجهز حسين كل القابر وين عن جثته عشان شلت النابل زين معرة لقيتها فيش البرايي قدرت ادفنها يا عم علي بسماجي مع شافت عتبواي صاحت اجرجول كفي الحسين مجهز حسين كل القابر وين مجهز حسين كل القابر وين من جثته عشان شلت النابل زين لكن يا سجاد عمك وصلك دم الشريعة واسمه رفعتك قالها يا عمك يزيد فنك لكن بلا راس عزك ولدين يا مجهز حسين كل القابر وين مجهز حسين كل القابر وين عن جثته عشان شلت النابل زين جاسم يا عمه ما قدرت اشوفه والله يجعني معاين جوفوها ذكرني طول مشرق ذنوبها شلهم بلاغون
نانا بنایا میں ویر دسرا نانا بنایا میں ویر دسرا نانا بنایا میں ویر دسرا نانا بنایا مینو سر تے سجاوے گا مینو سر تے سجاوے گا چن ویرن میرا نانا بنایا میں ویر دسرا نانا بنایا میں ویر دسرا بنایا اکبر دا میں گانا برا لائی میں جیت کا قاسم کا امام مال لانو جاتے بھی مال لانو جاتے بھی احسان ہے تیرا نانا بنایا سیداں دے مینڈا چاد میرات دا چان اکبر تے اے یوسف دا سلطان تینڈی فجر کو روشنی مک ویسی وہ مینڈا لازیدہ مہمان سیداں دے کل دیگر کو اساں کس ونجنے وہ تے ہو سی سارے دکھیا اریانے تینڈی بین دیا آخری حسرت ہے وہ اٹھی دے اکبر آزانے آتے مزمل دے تیرے دیا لگا شادی دے نویدان مینوں تانے بڑیا ہم شیرانو بھی آتے ہم شیرانو بھی آتے زمان بتیرا نانا بنایا میں ویر دسرا نانا بنایا
سیداں دا کینڈیٹا ہوئے میں اکبر کو مسجد اقصا تو لاندا ہنج نہ لاندا جویں امت لایا میں راج تو واپس آندا
بیٹیاں تیرے راتے دکھاں درداں دی ماری بچھڑی ہے مر نہ جاوے بہن پیاری اکبر نو میرا جا کے اکبر نو کوئی جا کے ہو دے سنیرا نانا بنایا میں ویر دسرا سیداں دے باؤں آکھا آیا لاش تنڈی تے مینڈا اکبر پتار جوانے اٹھی دیکھتا سی مینڈی پگ جان پئیے مینڈا لازیدہ مہمان ویرا تو بنا نانا مینوں چین कहने ना आवे कोई होवे मेरा दर्द मेरे भी मलावे रो रो के गुजरता है रो रो के गुजरता है आए शाम सवेरा लैला बनाया है मैं भी दसेरा जल जल के आजान सुनावो तेह भी सिख फुफियां मामा दी जिकू रोंदा वतन ते छोड़ाए वो पइये खाक ते उठ दी बांदी सैयद आंदा मैं विच दुनिया दे मरकज ते औलाद देआं दर्दां दा मैं को दसो लोगो रब दे नाते मैं को अकबर नजर नहीं आंदा मैं विक बनाया अकबर दा मैं गाना कासिम भाई मामा मैं लालू जाते वे लालू जाते वे एहसान है तेरा नैना न बनाया मैं वीर दसेरा
Sayyid, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali
Assalamu alayka ya Mawlaya ya Aba Abdillah Assalamu alayka wa ala al-arwah allati hallat bifnaik wa anakhat birahlik عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ما جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين السلام عليك يا مولاي يا غريب الغرباء ويا معين الضعفاء والفقراء السلطان أبا الحسن علي بن موسى الرضا كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء السلام عليك يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان الأمان الأمان إمام الإنس والجان ويا خليفة الرحمن عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل مخرجك وجعلنا من أنصارك وأعوانك والسلام عليك وعلى آبائك الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أمك فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين والسلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته
دعاء امام زمان اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه